I don't know, Biden's passing or like proposing a bunch of bills. Oh, that's the other thing. Joe Manchin came out today as the only Democrat to be against DC statehood. He's the only Democrat against DC statehood. That means DC won't get representation. And I know why Joe Manchin is opposing DC statehood. Because if it gets a statehood, DC gets DC gets 2 senators, and it's pretty likely those senators are going to be Democratic. Because because the Republicans treat them like crap. So of course DC is going to be Democrat. The senators are going to be Democratic. But Joe Manchin, if DC gets two senators and they're Democratic, that means the Senate will have 52 senators. That means Joe Manchin doesn't matter anymore. Joe Manchin can go ahead and make all the Republican arguments he wants. And he can vote with the Republicans all he wants. Joe Manchin can vote with all the Republicans. That's fine. because there'll be more Democratic senators. The 2 senators from DC will be Democratic. So go ahead, Joe Manchin. Go join the Nazis. We'll just the 2 DC senators make you pointless. We don't need you anymore. Go ahead, do whatever you want. We don't need you anymore. And then so Joe Manchin, he knows this. He knows that if DC gets 2 more senators and they're Democratic, the Democrats don't need Joe Manchin anymore. And that means Joe Manchin loses all his power. And if anything, there's one thing that Joe Manchin cares about more than anything else, and that's Joe Manchin. Nothing is more important to Joe Manchin than Joe Manchin. So he will gladly throw his party, his people, the country under the bus. It's no problem for him, as long as Joe Manchin comes out ahead. So if we understand that about Joe Manchin, if we understand that Joe Manchin has absolutely no morals whatsoever and is only in it for Joe Manchin, we can control for that. Like, for a little while, I was at my wit's end. I was pretty upset. I'm like, how are we going to handle Joe Manchin? What are we going to do about Joe Manchin? And I was like getting like violent, angry thoughts. It was pretty not happy. It was pretty bad. And like it was getting ugly, is what I'm saying. That's wild. Do I need to make it this high? Come on, guy. It's well, I can start it that way. That's kind of cool. I can make a taco bridge out of it. Ah! Ooh, can I do that? Make a taco bridge? Well, basically, I'd need to like make this into a taco, and that'd be really hard. Ooh. Ugh. Okay, let me see here. All right. So Joe Manchin, like I was at my wit's end about how to deal with Joe Manchin. but I just kind of talked myself into it, into figuring him out. We know Joe Manchin will act in the interest of Joe Manchin specifically. Therefore, if we make the other options decidedly anti-Joe Manchin, Joe Manchin is less likely to take those options. So right now, Joe Manchin is opposing DC statehood because opposing DC statehood is good for Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin opposes, or Joe Manchin supports the filibuster because supporting the filibuster is good for Joe Manchin. So we have to figure out a way to make it bad for Joe Manchin to support the filibuster. That is bad for Joe Manchin to um, to oppose DC statehood. We have to find ways to make it bad for Joe Manchin. Now, I think the Senate leadership could do that. Schumer. All Schumer has to do is just start taking away Joe Manchin's committee assignments. If Joe Manchin has no committee assignments, he can't really tell his constituents that he's doing anything. So he looks weak before his constituents, which, in a way, that hurts. That hurts the Democrats because they kind of need Joe Manchin there. But I don't know. I don't know what else to do. How do you make it hurt Joe Manchin? How do you make it bad for Joe Manchin to oppose DC statehood? I mean, you can say stuff like primary him all you want, but the fact is we need him there for now. And he knows it. He kind of is he's like the leader of the Democrats right now. Whatever he says goes for the Democrats. Joe Biden can say all the happy flowery speeches he wants, but until he convinces the leader of the Democrats, Joe Manchin, that the Biden plan is going to be good for Joe Manchin, the Democrats won't pass it because Joe Manchin is the leader of the Democrats, and he won't pass Biden's agenda unless Biden's agenda helps Joe Manchin. So I think what you need to do is bring back earmarks. Sounds crazy, right? Bring back earmarks? Didn't we want to didn't we have this huge fat argument about getting rid of earmarks? Because that just brings back the pork, right? And with the budgeting? Well, when you have earmarks, you know what earmarks are? Earmarks are like when you pass a bill, an earmark is saying, all right, this chunk of money is going to this program in this state. They were criticized because bills would be fat with pork. Pork is money. And all this pork would be earmarked to go to all these other states. And then so it would inflate the budget, and then people would get angry at it. So to try to fix it, they said, all right, we'll get rid of earmarks. No more earmarks. But if you have no earmarks, then nobody has any incentive to work with one another. Why would a Republican ever work with a Democrat? Why? There's no point. If you bring back earmarks, you can bring back cooperation. But it's a shitty way of doing it. Man, that's like the stupidest way of doing it. If you want cooperation, have more parties. And the way you make more parties is you get rid of first past the post and you implement instant runoff voting. But that's the best way to get cooperation, because you implement multiple parties and you'll find cooperation some way. But since we're not going to do it the smart way, let's do it the stupid way and and implement earmarks. That way we can bribe senators with pork into voting for a bill. So if you want Joe Manchin to support DC statehood, you got to bribe him with some kind of pork for his state, so he can go back to his state and say, look at the money I got you. And I think the way you bribe Joe Manchin is with green jobs. All Biden has to do is say, we're going to build the first solar power plant in West Virginia, and we're going to take ex-coal workers, coal miners, and we're going to make them work in the solar power plant factory. Then we'll make a battery factory right next to it. Solar, because you got to save all that electricity, right? And the way I look at it is that, like, the way it's going to go is if you're going to dump money into it. Like, look at computers. Computers are like almost like the stupidest waste of money, like in terms of investment, right? A PC is outdated in like 5 years and becomes like almost worthless. I wouldn't say almost worthless, but within 10 years, a PC becomes like virtually worthless. Ooh, I have no rockets. Oh no, I can't fly anymore. Come on. Okay, I made it to the land. All right, I have no rockets. That's funny. So but all of that money poured into PCs, personal computers, allows for ridiculous innovations in technology, so that PC like CPUs, processors, are becoming faster and faster and smaller. It's because all this money keeps pouring in. I mean, so if we can do the same thing for green energy, just start somewhere. Like, who cares? Just start. Make a solar power plant, or solar not power plant, but a solar panel factory, and then hire all the ex-coal workers into installing and producing solar power, solar panels. There, now you can bribe Joe Manchin, and he'll support stuff. Ta-da! Because Joe Manchin, we understand Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin is only motivated by what's good for Joe Manchin. So let's make it good for Joe Manchin to support DC statehood. You do that by attaching pork with the Green New Deal, and you say, "Hey, Joe Manchin, we'll put a power plant, a bunch of money in your state just for you, so we can get your vote to get rid of the filibuster and to get rid of and to give DC statehood and a bunch of other shit for free." Look at that. I'm giving it to you for free, Democrats. Listen to me. It's free advice. Like, how nice am I? It's because I'm a patriot, and I want this country to do good.